Just remember to turn our microphone on this time around there, BBA. This is what we call a note. It comes from the customer to the technician. Instead of peeking inside of an amplifier or a box and assuming that you know everything, we take time over here at the House of BBI to slow down and read the notes that you send in, because I think it's neat. It's very helpful. I make a big jest of this because I just recently had to overcome this with a major shop that I do a lot of business with, and instead of them reading the note, which very clearly laid out what the history was of the amplifier, they just looked inside of it and they assumed a lot, filled in all the holes with their own self-proclaimed knowledge, and ended up causing themselves a lot of headache. Read the notes. Just read the effing notes. This comes from my friend Walter. Walter is a big fan, and I think Walter's going to be really flattered that his amp's on YouTube. I've done many of these videos, like Bird Meter 101, Bird Peak Kits, all there is to need to know. But I don't think I've done a really straightforward beginning to end, this is an installation video. Please hook up my watt meter peak kit to this Bird 43 watt meter and check it out. If there is more, fix the problem. Also, when done, text me or call so you can get paid. Walter, I'm probably not going to charge you anything for this. I swear there's like multiple instruction videos out there in the internet, but we're going to do one here too. So, before I get too far off track, let me show you a couple things. That's a line section right there. That is the exact same line section like what's on the inside of Walter's Bird 43. Has all the same principles as this. This is inside of here. Now when we take the back off of this thing, you're going to be looking at the back side of the meter, or the back side of the line section. It's going to look like this. Here's the front side. Here's the pickup. The reason that this line section needs to come out is because of this. On the side of Walter's Bird 43, he's got a 50 kW, 40 through 1000 megahertz element. Now all the elements look the same, but Walter, this element here goes to this line section here. It does not go to a Bird 43. This will never work on a Bird 43. The biggest line section you can get for Bird 43, either 0 through or 30 megahertz or any other frequency, is about 25 kW, to my knowledge. They might have one or two, and it's an off-wall thing, but usually by the time you get to a 50 kW rating on the slug, or the element, you're running this, or bigger. Or bigger. Let me just say that, or bigger. Throw that back over on the shelf of knowledge. We're going to put this up out of the way. We're going to take your 50 kW slug and we're going to set it up there, which is really quite cute. These blanks are really cool, but we're going to pop them out of the way. Always transport your element with a blank in it or a meter element in it, but torqued out of direction, so like that. Not like this, not like that, but like that for transport. I've covered this in many a video. Grab one of my blanks. If you shake the meter, you're going to see the needle is going to wag a little bit. It's going to wag just a little bit. That can be very damaging to the element. Where if I push this in, now what we're doing is we're taking the two leads that come off the back of the element and we're shorting them together. See how it's not wagging nearly as bad and it's resisting its desire to move? It's because the electrical current that's being generated inside of the meter down, 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 down. When I rub the glass, I know. Okay. The electrical current is being generated inside the meter is being shorted out here at the coupler. So the coil that drives the armature is having to work against the electrical force of the coil, the magnet, the permanent magnet that's in here, and is helping protect the mechanism. So that's just everybody knows that tip, just sharing it along. This is the legit peak kit that comes from B&M Distributors LLC. Okay. This guy's also out of Florida. Super nice guy. I wish I could find his phone number on my phone. I have spoke with this guy on the phone. I'd love to become a permanent dealer with this guy and be able to get kits from him. Walter, we're not going to use your plug. These plugs don't work out too hot. They do work. They'll work for about a year. About your third battery, because everybody does the same thing. They forget their peak kits on. They run the battery dead. Then they replace that battery. And then they forget the peak kits back on again, and they run the battery dead. Everybody does it 2 or 3 times. It's just par for the course. Okay. What I started out doing is I'd take a little piece of double-sided stick tape, I'd click this on the holder, a little piece of double-sided stick tape, stick this to the floor, the back bottom side of the meter on the inside. And then this connector started to break down. Then I started soldering to the tabs of the batteries because I was lazy. And then I finally went, you know what? I'm going to make a permanent fix. We take double-sided stick tape, we attach this here, we attach this to the inside of the bird meter, and then we take and we plug in the battery. And when we want to change the battery out, it takes all the torque off of this plug. And the plug has a tendency to last a little bit longer. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and let's cover this from the beginning to the end. We'll set this aside for now. We're going to come back to this in a minute. Our first step is going to be removing these 4 screws. On some bird 43s, there's an extra screw here. So a total of 6, and this one's only got 4. Let's remove those 4 screws. You're in luck, my friend. This is a legit, old school, hardcore, heavy duty meter element. What I mean by that is this is glass, it's not plastic. If you go to Bird today and you buy a new meter movement from them, this is going to be plastic. This lens, this is actually legit steel, glass, backed up with a legit aluminum body. Today, plastic. Okay. This is an old school meter. Now, what I did a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was a place online that was selling Bird 43 mounting hardware. And that's what this is. It's legit brass hardware. The reason I bought that was specifically for the peak kits. You'll see that these posts are intentionally left long. Now on some peak kits, not on all, when you open up the back of this thing, this piece of coax that comes from the line section is wound up in here. And there's like 20 feet worth of wire in here. It's all that is RG58. 50 ohm coax that's shielded. And what that allows you to do is you can take these 2 screws out, slide out the line section, go attach it to the back of your amplifier, and then bring the meter around to your workbench and set it down with the coax hanging out the side of one of the holes, and it allows you to remote face the meter. There's nothing more complicated than that when it comes to remoting a Bird 43. Walters, on the other hand, does not allow us that option because the coax is short, but we can make that option be totally available. I'd use 316 today because it's smaller, it's Teflon's wire, it's flame proof, it's bend proof, it's impact proof, it's military grade coax. They didn't use that back then, way back in the day. Let's take a quick look at our serial number. This is the 108,765th one of these made. Translation a lot. Let's see, which one of them is it? Yes, it's this one here in the middle. You guys look at this all the time. You have no idea what you're looking at here. This is a single piece of bird watt meter history. Let's see if I can get this in frame. This is the 33rd Model 43 underneath through line watt meter name, black labeled. This is the 33rd one of these made. The 35th one of these made. 35? 33. It's the 33 one of these made. I held a contest about 4 years ago amongst all of my 4,000 or 5,000 Facebook friends. I said, hey, any of you guys out there got a lower serial number? And what was funny to me is these guys that were showing up, they had blank data tags because they'd gotten replacement data tags from Bird or whatever. I had a guy that was in the 70s. My buddy Zane had one that was way down there too, but that's the legit 33rd one of those made in that series run, which is pretty cool if you think about it. Okay, so we're going to take our nut driver, we're going to slide it in here, we're going to back off our keeper nut. We're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to back these all the way out. Remember, if you work on this on your workbench, make sure you're well away from the edge of it. No one's going to come out and come talk to you right now. You don't have to drop or stop what you're doing. You don't want it to be close to the edge of the workbench to where it might fall. This is the most vulnerable time in this watt meter's life, period, since its date of manufacture. It's right now. So we're going to pull that coax out of line. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our nut. And this isn't necessary for most of the Bird 43s, just on this older style that have this hump, this bump here in the back, this little bump. We're going to take this nut, we're going to run it down so it's roughly even with the hump. And we're going to throw a washer on it. It feels like 2, it is not, it is 1. Throw a washer on it, throw another washer on it. We're going to come over to our extra bag of nuts and bolts and hardware. We're going to cut this open. I'm going to get an extra washer because I'm going to need it. That's our lock washer, that's our lock washer, nut. Nut. Okay. File that in the appropriate department. Pull our coax out of the way. First, we're going to grab this here real quick. We're going to back this nut off. I'm going to set that nut aside. Now, you'll find, if you guys are watching this, so, oh, no, it's going to fit. Okay. You'll find that they have moved the spacing on these meter posts over the years. Wider, narrower. Don't freak out. If you go to put this on here and it doesn't quite perfectly line up, don't be afraid to get out a little tiny round file, like your file for your chainsaw bar, and go ahead and notch out the ground side. And the reason I say notch out the ground side and not the positive side is there's a whole lot more of the ground side metal mass to mess around with. Come here. There's a whole lot more metal mass over here on this side of the trace to mess around with than there is here. And we don't want to encroach on these traces over here whatsoever. So just notch this out just a little bit and it'll slide right on the posts every single time. Remember, this is an aftermarket kind of universal kit. All right. Now the way we're going to wire this up is that this plug is going to go over here out of this side of the meter, kind of like what we got going on up here. So we're going to slip this through its hole, and then we're going to slip this down and on, just like that. And we're going to drop our washer on. Oh, no, I'm just going to do that on the positive side. Washer, lock nut, then nut. Let's grab our driver. And this is 11/32, by the way. I'm going to tighten this down. So, on our ground side, what we're going to do is we take our shield, and we want to make sure our shield wire is going straight up and down. So we go shield, washer, lock washer, nut. pair of needle nose. And then we're going to tighten this down, just like so. You don't need to get Thor, Hammer of God tight. We're not interested in that. We're just interested in making a good connection. We're going to take our next eyelet, which of course this is going to be a little bit too tight. We're just going to work that down on here. Get it started. We're going to go ahead and thread this down the rest of the way and tighten it up. So all this board is a signal amplifier. It is going to amplify the signal that we put into it, and it's going to multiply it or it's going to divide it. That's it. There is no way for us to adjust this to make it read more. I mean, I guess you could if you went in there and adjusted the peak to be completely outrageous, but then it wouldn't be linear from scale to scale to scale. I mean, it would just be obvious. I mean, like blindly obvious that it wasn't right. So we got two options that we can do. We can go in here and we can pull these two connectors out, or you can go ahead and cut this and then heat shrink and solder this on. Me personally, I'm just going to go get a flat blade screwdriver. Let's disconnect these real quick. Okay, so our next step that we do is we're going to secure our switch set. Now this is the one and the only advantage that this peak kit has, or disadvantage, pardon me, that this peak kit has over, God, I'm always afraid I'm not going to get this square, over the one that is a copy of it out of New York. The one that's out of New York is made in China, and it comes with a plastic insert that pops right in this hole, and it totally does away with the need of having to do this, which is glue in this on-off switch pack. Totally does away with that. So we just secure this with a little bit of super glue and some Instaset, and like I said in the previous segment, went ahead and put this little holder in. Now you got to make sure that you don't have anything in here per the instructions. The instructions are very, very clear, very easy to understand. Very, very, very easy to understand. So if you follow them literally step by step, there's no way that you can mess this up. It also has got some literature that's attached to it that kind of documents the history of this kit and where his motivations were behind building this. Like, he got tired of having to constantly buy 9 volts because the Bird Peak kit sucks so bad, and wanted to be able to increase the usability of his slugs or his elements to where he could just take and use 100 watt, 500 watt, 1000, whatever, and create a little bit more flexible of a meter. It's some neat history. If you do get the opportunity to read it, probably should. Okay, let's get on with the calibration process. Okay, everybody read these instructions thoroughly? I know I have many times. This is from my very first kit. My very first kit I ever got. I was turned on to this company by a guy by the name of Squeaker. He's down there around Witch Doctor and Deputy Dog and Jeep and all of them guys down there around Fresno. I bought my very first watt meter. I bought it from Doc Adams in the Evergreen. I paid him $350 for that meter. Paid him with a check. And I mailed him the check. And my very first bird element I ever got from him was a 5-watt slug that sits there on my 2950. The meter over here on the far right is my very first bird meter I ever got, and I got it from Doc Adams. Squeaker was the one that turned me onto this PEP kit. He said the bird peak kit was horrible. The guy that owns this company that makes this peak kit sends really cool literature along with this paperwork here. And he gives a brief history of his motivated goals and the reason why he created this peak kit. The bird peak kit sucks. I don't know how else to put it. They haven't changed their engineering design in probably 40 years. At least. 1965, 1970s technology. They haven't. I don't know why they refuse to embrace the future, but their peak kit uses 2 9-volt batteries and it'll burn through them in a New York second. Like, my peak kit that I have has had the same 9-volt batteries in it now for like a year. And even with the meter off, 99.999% of the time I got to change them every year. It's just horrible. The meter's wildly inefficient, okay? This guy had a dream to make it better, and he did. He brought better technology to the game. It uses roughly, but not close, but not roughly. It uses the same kind of idea as an op amp, just a more efficient one to drive the meter. But I think I've told my story long enough to where if you need to read these, you can pause the video and you can see what's said here on the instructions. Everywhere in the instructions where it says SW1, that's this button right here. And I got the ISO gain cranked up to 11 so we can see this in here. This SW1 button, you never want to hit it if there's an element in the front hole up here. You're going to mess the element up and it's going to throw off the accuracy of the element. So they say by rumor. I've never tested it. And it's also going to throw off your accuracy of what you're setting as a calibration point. So the first thing we got to do is give this thing a unit of measure to work with. So we're going to make sure that our peak kit, which is this switch here, we're going to take this peak kit, we're going to turn it off. We're going to make sure this 3-position switch is in the middle. Okay? We're going to hit this button and then we're going to adjust this potentiometer, which is orange. Specifically covered right here. With the switch in the CW average position and the range extender switch in the center position, press the calibrate SW1 button and then adjust VR3, which is the orange, colored orange, to full scale deflection. So now I'm just going to bump this button here in the back with my one finger and let's see what we get for needle movement. Dead on the money. I didn't adjust this. This is just the way it came. Dead on the money. This is one adjustment that is the most important adjustment out of the whole meter set. If you wanted to make your bird meter lie, this is your only point that you'd be able to make this adjustment work, is going to be adjusting this particular potentiometer. The problem is if you make that adjustment, none of your other scales will read linear, and they're not going to even be close to linear. Like, let's say you make that read wildly aggressive. Your peak numbers are going to be so far off that you're never, I mean, like a 2-pill is going to do 5,000 watts peak. And this is a hard meter to make lie from the word go. And this kit is set up in such a fashion that if you try to make this kit lie to you, it's going to screw up the other readings so bad that everybody's going to be able to see right through it. So there's no point. There's no point. I didn't even know that you could make this thing lie until I seen that Harlem Globetrotter video. Man, I must have occupied somebody's like a whole week of them setting that video up. You know, the one. Come to find out that was Arlen at X-Force that set that up. I had to burn that guy's saddle. I don't mind being that raw point for him because look at how it's worked out for him. Anyhow, to me, this is just a tool. This is a unit of measure. Why would we want to make it lie? Just unless you're trying to sell something to somebody, but then when you've got 5 other meters that back up the same measurement, it's pointless. It's just pointless. Okay, now we're going to flip on the peak switch. So we're we're going to flick this switch up so the light comes on. It means peak. And then we're going to adjust VR1. So brown, color of poo. We're going to press this button here, and we're going to adjust brown till we have full scale deflection. Don't even have to adjust that. That's dead on the money. Now, I do this several times. And what I'm watching is the needle go past. It'll pop past it, but then it'll settle. And where we're adjusting to is the settle point. Now that's moving kind of like a bird, but a bird that's being struggled with snot. I'll pop it. See how it pops past and then comes back? Okay. Our strut, our peak kit off. That's our next step. Return to CW position and switch the range extender up for 2x times. Now that's the thing I like about this meter, is that he built so much flexibility into this. I could make the up position a 5x, and I could make the down 10x. You could make the up 15x and the down, however you want to break the math out. You could set this up for up being 1.5, but it's going to be up to you to figure out the math for that. I mean, it is what it is. So we're going to send that, we're going to set this thing, we're going to adjust the VR yellow to read 50 on a 100% scale. If you think about it, just trying to gain down a little bit, make this a little bit easier for your guys' eyes to consume. So we're going to adjust yellow. So full deflection's 100. We're going to want it to read right here, right there, 50. Go to 2x. I don't even know why I got this in my hands. Which is cool, is because we can zoom in here and we can look at something. This is neat. On the edge of, let's see if it can resolve this for us or not. I really need to spend the money on this other lens. If you'll see, so far all of these things I haven't had to touch them because they've still got the paint on them from when he took his paint Sharpie and went, like the yellow, the orange, the brown. I haven't had to adjust one of them yet, especially the yellow, which is a second range extender. Remember, if you don't have that first scale in linear motion to its actual state where it needs to be, none of these other measurements are going to make any sense. They'll fall short, they'll come along. That's legit right where we want it. 100. 50, so half of face value. And now let's go on down to the 5th position, or the 5 times position. With the range extender switch down, for the 5 times extension, adjust the green VR5 to 20 on the 100 watts, or the 100% scale. If you want some other than 2x or 5x extension, just adjust VR5, VR4 to suit your requirements, just like what we discussed. But we're going to adjust per the instructions, green, to 20. So we're down in 5. We'd adjust this adjustment point. I'm going to hit this button. I'm just going to stand here with my hand in my pocket, because guess what? We're done. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. This thing is spot on the money right out of the box. I mean, spot on the money right out of the box. That's awesome. I've never had one where I didn't have to fiddly fart with at least one of the ranges, just a tiny little smidge. Okay, now our last adjustment is PEP mode. Now, this is a thing of personal preference, all right? VR2, our red extension. Set the amount of hang time on the PEP mode adjustment to suit you. Pardon me, it says suit yourself. I'll put this back away. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to dig that set of instructions out, send them to people, photocopy them, whatever. Put that away for next time. Look, I've got this memorized. I don't need to get the instructions out. I do it every single time I get a video out, okay? Because the numbers don't ever change. They don't ever change. They don't ever change. What they're talking about, hang time, is this effect here. PEP kit on. See how slow that is? Well, it moves forward in the same unbelievably slow speed. Now my meters, I like to have them read quick. Because I've found if I've got to wait for this meter to slowly stack up, and I'm going, hello, and the meter is still rising. It's like, hello. That entire time I could have something completely out of tune, and now I've burned up a bunch of parts. Or if I got it fast and I can go, hello, and it's like, I can get a little bit quicker reading. So we're going to turn this up a little bit to where you're not going to damage your equipment. If you want more, you can adjust it and get more. But that's relatively quick. Mine are much faster than this. But that's up to you if you want to set it like that. I can't do this to you, because I know you're going to be afraid to get in here and touch it. So all you're doing is adjusting a capacitor. And how quickly the current gets bled off of that capacitor. Specifically this one right here. That seems to be about the right smoothness. Well, that's it. That's all there is to it. Your peak kit is now installed. Now, there's one other thing I want to do. Sorry, man, I couldn't find any other Post-its in pink, but don't matter, nobody can see it. I put a Post-it on the inside of that meter. I say that meter and then that meter, and I write on the same Post-it just the date. It's real simple. It says PEP kit installed by BBI 3/2 of 21. From now on, you're just going to write down a date, and then there'll be a second column, and then a third column. Just write down the next time you replace your battery. When your battery starts to go low, you're going to notice something happen with your peak watts. And peak power is just going to start to fall back on you. And everybody's first instinct is to go, man, yesterday I was running this thing and it was putting out 1,000 watts. Today it's putting out 880. Don't freak out. Do not go and adjust your station. Just don't. Think about it for a minute. Reach over here and turn the peak kit off. So you're going to take two measurements. You're going to get used to running this thing, and you're going to be like, okay, you're going to get all peaked out and you're going to be all happy to where the meter's perfectly happy. Turn the peak kit off and take a look and see how far that meter's going with the peak kit off without you changing anything else in your station. say this as somebody that has been fooled by this many, many times. I remember I took my whole mobile apart one time just because I had a battery go low. Okay. The other thing is, do not use a wall wart to power your peak kit. There's guys out there that swear, testify, they get down on both knees in front of the Christ cross themselves and go, "Oh, thy Lord, they shalt not steer me wrong. I've got a 9-volt that's never bothered anything." I've killed a couple different bird meters from doing that in my time. So I cannot suggest it, but there's always the one guy that can. Don't run your peak kit on a wall wart. Just use a 9-volt. If you see your peak power start to fall off, flip over and look at it in average. And if your number goes up to the same spot, then your 9-volt is good. I mean, your 9-volt is going bad, and that's what's wrong. So don't get carried away. Just pull your 9-volt out. If it reads anything other than 9 volts, just change it. Just change it. I mean, I buy stock in 9 volts, like stock. I got packages and packages of them around here because it seems like I can go buy 29 volts. A month later, I need a 9-volt and I can't find it. So there's one other thing I want to do to this, and then we're going to test this. Okay. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Done and done. This is not something I want to get in the habit or practice of doing, you guys. This guy really had to ask me quite nicely several times if I'd be willing to do this for him, and I kept telling him, you can do it yourself. You can do it yourself. I have faith in you. There's lots of YouTube videos. You can do this yourself. And he says, no, I don't trust myself. My hands are too shaky. I'm blind in my left testicle. There was a time I got struck in the head by Muhammad Ali, and then Jesus came and anointed me with his personal man oil. I don't feel comfortable. I said, okay, I'll help you out. It was the Jesus thing, anointing him with his own man oil, which talked me into this. So, remember, we just put these in here, finger tight. Don't gotta go and be He-Man on nothing. All right, let's set this up so we can read just a couple watts with it, and let's get on with this. So, I'm sure if you've been watching my YouTube videos for long enough, so do I got my field of focus set right? Scooch, we gotta split the difference. If you've been watching my YouTube videos long enough, you've probably made the observation that my peak kit does not sit on true zero, nor will it ever. It has something to do with the peak kit itself. I've talked to the guy that makes these peak kits, and he says, yeah, about 1 in every about 1,000 does that. And I said, what causes it? And he goes, the whittle-da-da-da hooked up to the hibby-jibby of the penis whipple. And I said to him, great. So how do we make it so it doesn't do that? And he goes, change meter elements. Well, at the time when I got the peak kit and I got the bird meter, I was broke. I'm still broke today, but I mean, I was like dirt broke. Like, I was trying to figure out how I could count out enough pennies to be able to go buy a pack of cigarettes, and that was back when they were only like $1.25 a pack. God, can you believe a pack of cigarettes like $10 a pack now? Oh, God, how can anybody afford to smoke? I've gotten used to it, and it doesn't change the meter reading. It has something to do with a small little bit of voltage that comes out of the op amp, and it pushes the meter back to the stop peg. And it's always done it. And it's been that way for a decade, and I'm not going to change it. So about every 8 months, maybe 10 months go by, and I get a newcomer to the channel. Man, I can't seem to like find that magic butter zone to where I'm going to be happy with. Is that it? Is that it? Here. I get a newcomer that comes to the channel and he goes, Hey, I don't know if you've ever noticed this or not, bud, but you know your peak kit's sitting there a little bit low. You might want to get that fixed. And they always point out the same thing. This, they'll always say the same thing to me. You know, there's a little knob right here that you can adjust that, and it'll make it read at 0. I go, yeah, oh yeah, no. You're true. You're absolutely right. Here's the thing. So I turn a peak kit on, it sits at 0. And I don't ever use the street average. I have a whole nother third meter or second meter committed for that. So I don't even, to me, it's irrelevant data. But to some people, it bugs some people. There's people out there that have opinion about it. Guess what? Don't care. Ugh, hair in my mouth. I don't care. So we're going to use our Striker 490 at the moment. Hello, audio. Now, there's another game I like to play with all my technician buddies. Zane, everybody that's ever been anybody, I tell them, when you come here, bring your own bird meter, bring your slug. Let's put it on my workbench. Let's see where it falls against my meter. I've never had anybody have their meter fall shorter than mine. And usually it's either the slug or it's the, I don't know, this meter, my bench meter, this one over here. Contrary to popular belief, is really stingy. It is. I've had several people. Prime himself has brought his personal bird 43 with his slug here on this bench and hooked it up. And this one's still read less than his. This one's been to his house. I boxed this one up on an airplane one time, took it to his house. And we measured our meters against each other at his house on his bench with his shit. Still read less. It's a joke to me because there's so many people out there that say that my meter is rigged to do whatever. I don't know, but I think it's laughable. It's pointless. It's pointless. But let's take a look at our average watts. We bought two 100-watt slugs. So this is a 100-watt slug. That's a 100-watt slug. The same ones have been on my workbench forever and more. They come directly out of my holder. Nothing special going on. Hello, audio. Okay. You've got to expect like a 10% variance, roughly, on a really out of alignment scale between the elements. And what I'm going to do is I'm taking an element from one and slitching it into another. Hello, audio. You'll see this one's still a tad higher. But they're going to catch each other here in a second. So let's turn on the peak kit on 1, turn on the peak kit on 2. Hello, audio. Now they're both on their stop pegs. So now we're going to utilize that multiplier unit. We're going to go to 2x on both units. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. They're pretty darn close. Hello. They're within a needle's width, I'd say. Hello, audio. These things are reading spot on with each other. Now, to double verify that, and not blind you guys as I do it by throwing my shoulder in the equation, let's take that element, put it out there, take this element, put it in here, take this element, put it in here, just like that. Hello. See the difference in the 2 meters? It's got nothing to do with the meter itself. It has to do with the quality control from coaxial dynamics or bird. There's like a 5 or 10% variance in between each one of the elements, and that's not enough to get anybody excited. Not the FCC, nobody. That's the tolerance window. So by simply switching the slugs around, now we're getting a slightly different reading. This one here is now lower, this one now is higher. We flipped them around, this one is dead on with this one. I'm telling you, The frickin' meter's stingy. Now this is the third or the fourth one of these videos I've shot just like this, and they've all came out in the same result. That meter's stingy. It is what it is. But the end result is, Walter, your shit's straight, brother. The only thing you had to do was sacrifice one storage hole. So, yeah, we're good. Now, one more thing before we go. Let's turn this back to auto, and let's go on in here and look at this. Always use this hasp. Latch it down. Now, a lot of guys, they can't stand that hasp. They go, oh man, it sucks. It's impossible. You got to take your thumbnail and you got to get in there and you got to flick this up. And you got to, man, I got to get my screwdriver out. I got to keep a pair of pliers around to flick this thing up. It's a pain in the ass. I can't, oh man, my old delicate fingers. And let's face it, I'm starting to get old. My skin's starting to turn like tissue paper too. I freaking fart on it and it starts bleeding. Let me show you a little trick. Ready? Bring this in a little bit closer to where I'm not leaning all the way across the damn workbench. Wide. Come on, catch up. Now focus. Focus. Check this out. This is fully latched, okay? We're gonna pull straight out and twist. That's latched, and it keeps the element locked in place. Pull straight out and twist. Just give it a little rocking motion. Click, comes right out every time. This thing's got a little bent tab to ear on it. See that? All you got to do is help promote the idea that you want it to come out of there. Click, comes out. What I can't stand is when the guy does this with his meter. Man, I don't know why it's not working. It won't stay latched in place. I don't know. And then you flip it around. No, dude, this is part of holding the whole mechanism together. Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to keep a long fingernail to grab a hold of that. And it's real awkward to get in there, and my schmeckle at the tip of it is just not big enough. My snuffleupagus can't grab onto it. Look. Pull, twist. Pull, twist. It prefers the downward rotation, by the way, clockwise. Pull, twist. Pull, twist. Doesn't hurt the element any. If that was the case, my 1,000 waters that have been in there for thousands and thousands and thousands of videos would be all worn out around the edges. Look. Pristine, sharp, clean. Just saying. Walter, I got to run. Gentlemen, I hope you guys learned a little bit or maybe discovered a little bit of something. I am not the bird watt meter whisperer. I am just like the rest of you guys. I got up this morning and I put on my pants normally. Questions about Bird's products or their quality standards or what you want, give Bird a call. On that note, I'm going to run. Gentlemen, appreciate every single one of you. I'll have to go do something else. I'll see you.